Good morning, everyone. We're just waiting for a couple of minutes, I think, before Professor Mehdi actually introduces us. You're on mute.
Mic is off, Dr. Ali.
Yes, you're mute. Ali?
Yes.
Yeah.
No, I'm very humbled by a description of professor. I'm just a doctor, or Mr. even in the UK context.
Sorry, I demoted you. As a surgeon, I should call you Mr. Mehdi.
No, professor sounds very good. Thank you. It's a privilege. No, I'm not a professor. Right. Okay. Let's see. So where are we time-wise? 59. I'll just make sure there are people in the audience who need to be unmuted if required. No.
Depends a different university, but this one for Hippocratics.com/.
Yeah. Yeah. Right, it's just turned 11 o'clock, and I think, you know, the BBC beeps from all over the world. Well, we don't have them, but good morning, good afternoon, and good evening, everyone. My name is Ali Mehdi, and I'm a consultant orthopedic surgeon, and would like to welcome you on behalf of the Global Health Academy of the University of Edinburgh. This is the third and penultimate in the series of Hippocratics Webinar that is focusing on the challenges and ways to resolve these challenges about medical education delivery across the world. So I'd like to thank all our speakers and today and previous speakers, above all yourselves for giving your time and joining in this learning experience, and to the team at the Global Health Academy. So we will tell you later about the Global Health Academy. Professor Liz Grant, who heads it up, will be coming on during the program and telling you a bit more and its offerings and the work they're doing across the world and how you could potentially benefit from that. So the COVID-19 crisis, as we know, has unraveled many challenges, but, you know, in challenge, there's opportunity. The Global Health Academy aims to foster networks, partnerships, and communities of practice. And as we close next week, you will find there have been good examples where people have come together and will hopefully start collaborating in the future. So we are all bound by this experience. It is a humanitarian cause beyond boundaries of politics and beliefs, and sharing experience and growing together really would be the purpose of this. But before we begin, our panelists today are Dr. Helen Cameron, Professor Helen Cameron, who is the Interim Dean of Aston Medical School, a Professor of Medical Education there, and an Honorary Professor of Medical Education at the University of Edinburgh. So she will be our chair. A big welcome and thank you to her. Joining in with her are Professor Shahid Hassan from the International Medical University of Malaysia, Professor Lubna Beg, who is the Dean of Medical Education at the Jinnah Sindh Medical University. We have Dr. Sheetal Bhandari from Nepal, and contributing as well will be Hasnain Baloch, but you are most welcome, please, to come on camera, raise your hand, and make contributions in the question and answer session, because that's what we want. We'll be opening up a survey maybe. Some of you would have filled it, but we really would like your opinion, because it is your opinion that actually would enrich this whole program today. Your opinion, your view, and that's where we'd be able to identify the key challenges and areas where there are opportunities. So please make sure to keep your mics off. We will bring you in for the question and answers, but to do that, just repeat, you'll have to come on video and raise your hand. We are streaming this program on YouTube, and I would request, please fill in the webinar attendance form with the correct email address. No typos, please, because a robot will be sending this out. So a huge privilege to introduce our chair, Professor Helen Cameron. Helen, over to you. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Ali, and welcome from me, everyone. As I discovered, it's evening for some people, afternoon for others, and morning, certainly if you're in the UK. It's really a great privilege for me to chair this meeting, and also a really area of interest. So it's going to be personally enjoyable. I've spent most of my 25 years in medical education focusing on assessment, and we were already engaged in developing new assessments in our fairly new medical school. We're just about to enter the third year. So I'm particularly keen to hear what people say, both our panelists and also from the audience. As Ali said earlier, please put questions in the notes at the side, in the chat notes, and also be thinking about whether you could make a very brief 2 to 3 minute contribution towards the end to tell us about an innovation you've brought into your assessment program as a result of COVID. And it would be really helpful if you were to flag up the problems you faced and then some of the solutions. So that'd be great. So today's title is Assessment of Cognitive Skills, Challenges and Opportunities in COVID-19. And we turn to our first speaker, Professor Shahid Hassan from the International Medical University, Kuala Lumpur, Malaysia. And several of us are acquainted with this university because they send their students across the world for later training stages. So Professor Hassan is going to talk to us about the framework for mapping evidence of learning and the e-tools that we could use. Professor Hassan, it would be really nice if you could say a few things about yourself and your particular interest in this subject before you then launch us into this fascinating area of discussion. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Ali and Prof. Helen. Can you hear me?
Yes, yes.
Clear.
Okay, fine. So I'm working in International Medical University as professor in School of Medicine and the IMU Center for Education. My interests, I have primarily from my clinical background, I'm an ENT thyroid surgeon with subspecialty of head and neck and thyroid. But over the years, as I got interested in medical education and got my master's from the Maastricht University, then I got practically involved with the medical education, innovation, research, and all. And my interest basically is in assessment area as well as in faculty development. And the other interested area among assessment is the workplace-based assessment, and more about the collaboration issues regarding the validity, reliability, and psychometrics of assessment. Moreover, the standard setting and item analysis and all that has been part and parcel of the assessment are the other thing. So with this, my time starts from my first, not now yet. So I go on slideshow and start with my presentations, which is, I have given the task was to develop a framework of mapping. So I put it more, framework in 12 minutes would be a bit too extensive thing to do. So that's why I made it to mapping the evidences of learning and the e-tools. So with me, Hasnan would be chipping in towards the end with the e-tools that we have. Last slide that I will show, we have worked a lot on that to put together. That was the task, to how to put together the learning evidences and the e-tools with the purpose of the assessment. So first thing I would like to share would be about why we do assessment. Is it because it is an intake criteria, industrialists need it, employers need it, or merely because the accreditation, professional bodies, or the Ministry of Higher Education or the university or the institution really want it? But whatever reason, we can't do away with the assessment. We have to do it for several reasons. A lot of stakeholders are interested in it. But first, before I go to my content slide or the agenda given, I would share this with you, the UNESCO report, which where the 84 country participated, 69 about the assessment. This was about the assessment, how they are, what action they have taken about the assessment during the COVID, which is an unprecedented kind of the crisis that we all are going through, challenge for all of us. So 69% of them actually said they have postponed or rescheduled their assessment. And 27, rather I'll put together, the 53% almost have opted to alternative methods or online methods, right? And some of them, 26%, which is part of 53, I suppose, maintained their examination. And 13% have altogether canceled it. But most interesting area is this, why they actually have been continuing with it compared to other who have altogether canceled or postponed it for this. The issue is that assessment online during the COVID crisis, where most of us were actually used to having assessment on campus, on site, right? So this online assessment may not be an easy task, particularly when it comes to the subject and the competencies, which every competency cannot be measured online as we are used to it during our face-to-face or on-campus assessment. So equity, fairness, feasibility, and quality may be in question, right? But the reason why 53% actually have been opted to continue with the assessment, or some of them has actually accelerated their assessment, the reason being that they want to know the learner progress, which is important to them, particularly during the COVID, where the on-campus sessions are not on, right? Then gaps of the knowledge among the learners, if it is online learning, are they learning adequately well, or is there gaps in their knowledge? And then the remedial sessions, if those who are not doing well, has to be offered by the facilitator, and continuing learning options. So how learning and teaching and assessment can be aligned is the first task that I have to, let me hide my this. Okay, so how learning and the teaching and assessment can be aligned, intended learning outcome and the concept of the constructive alignment. What evidences of learning do we seek now, and what is our purpose? I'll especially talk on formative versus summative assessment, and I'm a strong believer that in this COVID state, where we all are passing through the challenges and the test time, I think we should do away with the boundary of the summative and formative assessment. And formative assessment can be used at multiple point of time with multiple information collected or gathered as a data, and can be provided with feedback as well as decision making. That I'll talk towards the end of the slide, where I'll share some of the innovation that we have made recently. How to put learning evidences, tool, and purpose of this together is a big task that we have put as a slide, which will I'm going to benefit all of you at the end of this. Ali will share. I'm stuck. I cannot move my slide. Hello.
Hello. Yes. Do you want me to come and screen share your slides with you?
I cannot move. Something happened.
Okay.
I have requested
Hasnan also can do. Hasnan, can you share? Or Ali or Hasnan, any one of you?
Yeah, there you are.
Okay, there. We'll go back to the previous slide.
Yeah, Hussain, could you go back?
Another previous. Okay. Another, no, previous slide. No, this is the end. Can I go previous?
You try now, Prof. I think you can control now.
Can control, right? Okay. Okay. Thank you, Ali. Thank you, Hasnan. So moving from here, now quickly I'll go to the learning outcome and how the assessment should be in a constructive alignment. As Biggs recommend that assessment should be designed in a backward manner, right? So first thing we do is to identify the learning outcomes, and from the learning outcome, teaching learning strategy, and further backward assessment. So it has to be backward, but ultimately has to be aligned with the targeted student learning time and the achievement that we make to look at the from the learning outcome perspective. Now, this is the learning outcome, which is at the mission and vision level, at the accreditation board or institution level. And second is the program educational objective. This is down the lane, 3 to 5 years after the graduation. We want to see how the graduates are performing in their practical life. So this can be easily achieved through predictive validity, comparing their scores on the exit exam during their program and what if there is an assessment or some kind of assessment during their internship. But what is important is here the program learning outcome, which has to be designed by the program developers, and the course learning outcome by the module or the course coordinator. So they all help each other, complement each other. Coming to the mapping, actually I have shared here a very simple table where learning outcomes, you have to identify all the learning outcomes. We currently, this is what Malaysian Quality Agency has been recommending us 8. Now they have increased it to 11. Anyway, the course learning outcome will develop the course learning module coordinator will develop the course learning outcome, and then we have to see which learning outcome is addressed by these. The one learning outcome can be addressed by course learning outcome can be addressed by more than one learning outcome as well, right? Then we can have a soft package of this, which in Malaysia has been developed by one of the institutions on Excel, and I'll not talk much about it because it is still under process. Okay. Now, taking the challenges, different contexts and different strategies we are working with, very fragile, can't do away with the exam, high stake exam, and ultimate. This is I have put a query here and we have to consider it. Should we continue with this concept or change it to more formative? Time to review the curriculum strategies. Is it the same that we develop our curriculum for face-to-face, and now we are actually doing it on online? So what the difference of the curriculum delivery and how about the assessment should also be reconsidered. Now, a word about formative versus summative assessment, right? In this situation, we should adapt, I suggest we should adapt a model, instructional model, which has hand in hand has the assessment as well. And TBL, I'll recommend in the next slide. But what I want to emphasize is we should do away with the boundary of the summative formative assessment. Decision making, though low stake, can still be taken with the formative assessment with multiple data points at different point of time should be collected, gathered together, and at one stage, all those gathered data points as a formative assessment should be made for decision in terms of summative assessment. This is my recommendation. I think will make everybody's life easier. Those formative assessment can be done at module level also, right? So programmatic assessment is a good line for that, right? Master plan, low stake with feedback and decision making at the end. Now to adapt to assessment, I suggest the TBL offers a good interactive methodology during COVID. We have developed an online TBL. We have a workshop now on 22nd for faculty development, and probably this is going to offer a good tool where assessment is provided within the instructions. That is very interesting, right? And I'll be talking more on my on 27 workshop webinar here. So we can see IRAT, individual rating, group rating of the team, outside class assessment, inside class assessment, all can give you a multiple data point for taking decision. So this is how the outside class session start, like a flipped classroom way. And then we have, this starts with IRAT, which is individual rating or assessment, group or the team rating. And then we have in-class application assignments. So instructions, and this goes together, but I'll talk more about that. But at the end, before I go, scratch card, which has been used and very expensive now, we have developed the online version of it. So allow me to show that. Okay, I'll escape that. Anyway, I cannot escape at this point, so let me move forward. So this one, as we can see, The scratch card previously has been used. Now we have developed the online version of the scratch card, right? So we can easily use the coin can be used online using in breakout session, and this can be done. So more important for me is to move on to the next slide. Hassan, can you help me to move to the next slide? I'm stuck again here. Yeah. This slide is important for all of you to share. It's going haywire.
Prof, I'm controlling actually.
Okay, can you show me the last slide? Last slide, my last slide. Okay, further down. This one, yes. Here I'll give it to Hassan to talk a little bit on e-learning tool, but most importantly, we have mapped up all this, put together the learning, which are the learning domains from, and I have put the Anderson modification to the Bloom's action verbs together with the creation, or the create has become the last. This is actually synthesis, which has to be ultimate. In Bloom's, it is at number 5, and Anderson has modified it to number 6. So I'm maintaining that. Then learning evidences, which assessment tool will you use to actually measure those learning domains? And then in COVID state, what are the e-learning tools? So this, Hassan, can you take over from here, this point onward? And all this first and second column, if question, I'll answer. But the specific learning tools that we think can be mapped together with the learning outcome, the learning domains, and the assessment tool that we are using. Over to you, Hasnan.
Okay, thank you, Dr. Shahid. Hi, everybody. Can you hear me?
Yes, we can hear you clearly.
Okay, good. So I'll be focusing on the third column here, where we have actually listed down a lot of tools. Most of these tools are free to use, but with limited features. So like, for example, online quiz, we can use Quizlet. Okay, the typo error here is actually Q-U-I-Z, Quizlet. And Quiz is, there are a few more other tools. We have most of our learning management systems, they have built-in quiz feature in almost all learning management systems. Kahoot is very popular whenever it's like gamifying the quiz or assessment. At IMU, actually, most of students, they prefer to use this at every questions once they submit. So it's more like synchronous activity, or like where we have now. In this kind of environment, we could use poll everywhere. You could embed, is the advanced version of clickers. I think our colleagues or audience from US, they might be familiar with clickers. So this is the web version of taking polls. So audience can use their smart devices to click on the polls option. Yes, and if you go down the second row, we have actually identified online forms. So you could even use Google Forms or Microsoft Forms, or there are a few other free online forms for us to use. In third, where we have apply, so we can use actually all these tools. All these tools have features. It's just how creatively or how smartly we will be using in our scenario. In analyzing or clinical reasoning, we have actually identified e-portfolios. Most of LMS, they have built-in e-portfolio feature. Or if you have assignment, you could actually convert assignment into an e-portfolio. At IMU, we are using Mahara, which is an open source, which integrates very well with Moodle learning management system. We could even use LinkedIn or any other website as a portfolio. Evaluate or appraisal also, we could use assignment feature in LMS, e-portfolio, LinkedIn quiz in LMS also could be used for this purpose. For creating, we could use assignment, online forms, or even email, like we may have certain part of the world where infrastructure is not that strong. So we don't need to push synchronous activities or assessments. So we could go asynchronous, and email is a very simple version of the tool where we could use this. The last one is attitude and performance. So here we could use even Wikipedia, WhatsApp, or all social media platforms where we could actually express, or nowadays YouTube is very popular, getting popular, where you could do recording of your, performance, and evaluators could watch and view YouTube and can even rate, can even comment, So that's all so far.
Okay, okay.
Yes,
Hassan,
Dr.
thank
Shahid.
you. Thank you very much, Hasnan. And the asterisk that you see at MEQ, modified essay question, is linked to the quiz. This will not be applicable because in MEQ, the student the answer sheet is taken away. They cannot go back. So this asterisk is put that this is not applicable. And moreover, the reflective practice, we can develop online forms on Google or Microsoft to have reflective practice using the Gibbs model. We have used it and it's very effective. Reflective practice actually enhances and bring all the information that the student gather to their long-term retention or long-term memory. So this is very important. Reflective practice, we emphasize more on that. But if you allow me, I just share in 1 minute what we have innovated here. The scratch card that is part and parcel of the TBL for group team or group red. We have created this. I'm showing you from this point where you will get. So if you are in a breakout channel or breakout rooms, you will put the number of your breakout rooms, and then there you go, start, right? This will bring you to the questions or OBA. We have OBA here, and then you can use this coin to actually scratch here. Then so it's not correct. So this is actually for partial credit. Okay, so we give credit to students who have done the pick up the correct answer, not in first attempt, maybe in second or third. So for every attempt they lose marks. So try again, right? So we click here, we go again, and then good job. So it says here continue, right? And I continue. And then I will, I came out on the second question. I'm just using 2 questions there. For example, for this question, this. Good job. Okay, then when I click this, I'll get the score. So this score can be used by the facilitator as well as by the team members. So this is done as a team. So we do in TBL, not only the individual rating, but the group rating online. So the scratch card, very expensive also. And during COVID, we cannot use it because it has to be an on-campus face-to-face session where we scratch card. So I'm done here. Thank you very much for listening.
That was really excellent. Thank you very much, Shahid and Hasnain. I'm really sorry I didn't introduce Hasnain at the beginning. I didn't realize he was making a contribution. Sorry about that. But
okay, no worries.
That was really a great synopsis of how we've got to think about what we want to assess, why we want to assess competences, and how we might use ordinary tools and then translate that to e-tools. Absolutely fantastic. So is the scratch card, I think everybody sort of found that fascinating. Is that available to other people at the moment?
We have recently developed it and we are using on 22nd for faculty development. Definitely will be shared. And everybody can benefit from it because if somebody has to adapt to the TBL, then this is an important tool because this gives fun to the students, for example, the passive students, when the active students fail to answer rightly on the first attempt, they will move on to the another who is a little passive student and his answer get correct. He's really motivated doing this. So it's a very motivational for the team members to use a scratch card. So it's fun as well as learning as well as assessment.
Now, not everyone will understand what you mean by TBL. It is a process of learning that...
Helen, this will be, we are going to talk on clinical education next seminar on 27. Me, Hasnan, coming again on this, and we will share some of our innovation on bedside teaching online, and TBL will be our focus. So I'll be talking more in detail on that.
Thank you very much. That's great. We'll look forward to that. So I think we should move on to the next talk, and we'll come back and have a question and answer session for all the talks at the end, because there's bound to be some overlap. So please keep your questions, and I have a very attractive assistant beside me this morning who is collating the questions, and we'll come to them shortly. So let's move on to talk 2, which is now about ensuring secure results from e-assessments. We heard about some methods that Shahid and Hasnain are using, but how do we ensure that the results are secure and really valid? So Professor Lubna Baig is from the Jinnah Sindh Medical University in Karachi, Pakistan, and she is going to take us through this talk. And again, Lubna, I'd be really grateful if you could just say a few words about yourself. Say a few words about yourself and your interest in this subject before launching your talk, please. Over to you, Lubna.
Thank you very much, Helen. I'm wearing a couple of hats. I'm the Dean of Public Health, and I'm also the chairperson for the Online Academic Council, which has been just recently introduced, actually been asked to develop by the Higher Education Commission, which is our accrediting body, to have that kind of council, which is going to ensure quality of teaching and keeping records and assessment. So everything that was, when I was chairing the curriculum committee before, so from there now they said, let's just develop this online academic council. And so we kind of renamed that thing, and that's what we're doing. My interest in assessment, well, to start with, 2 decades back, my PhD was in assessment of clinical competence. And so obviously assessment is something which is, I'm not going to say drives learning, because we're still not assessing for learning, we are assessing for other reasons. So having said that, well, thank you, Shahid, for setting the stage. For me, I think a couple of things that I was planning to go into a little more details, I'm not going to talk about that vis-a-vis the tools. So I'll focus on reviewing the possible processes for ensuring secrecy and transparency of the exams as well. And in our part of the world, somehow we just super careful, or we just, I sometimes call ourselves paranoid, that we think that every student is capable of cheating. So all those things are just as important. So when I started thinking about this presentation, I said, well, we have to think about it before the exams, what happens at the time of the exam, and how we can ensure after the exam. So we'll start with before the exams are conducted. So to go into that, we've tried that. We're asking students, we train them, we talk about academic and integrity, we talk about what's the code of conduct, how important it is for them to be honest to their profession. Although we ask the students at the time of induction, all our students, medical, dental, pharmacy, and all the other colleges that we have under the gamut of the university, we make them sign a professional code of conduct. But so we remind them, particularly at this time when we have to move into online assessment, and we do tell them what might happen. They know, not that the students don't know, and there is a disciplinary committee. And for whatever reason, I chair that. So we ensure in terms of if the students are found cheating, impersonating, or what have you. And we have these different kind of, I would say, punishments, whatever might happen to them. And now we've also introducing an affidavit for the students, which is like they are signing an oath for academic integrity. So they sign off on the oath. So this is kind of just reminders for the students before the exam to be sure that, so this is part of the people that are going to be writing those exams. Well, how do we ensure that they trust themselves, they're fair, and ensure that whatever they're doing, they are doing it fairly, honestly, and on their honor. So that's kind of some things that we do. Okay, so today that we're talking about, so these are some of the things that we have decided to use, and of course, you know, for our main examinations. For formative assessments, like Dr. Shahid said, formative assessment, you kind of, you know, like, you're not doing it on a regular basis anyways. So when we're doing that, we're doing it through small group teaching. We do give feedback to the students. Well, right now in this situation we are, because the semesters have ended, so we have to assess. So we using MCQs, SAQs for the postgraduates, term papers and assignments we've allowed, research reports, and of course, again for the postgraduates, we may be allowing for open book exams. But these are some of the things that, out of all the things that we looked at, that can be assessed at this time of the COVID crisis, where we are not allowed to have on-campus examinations. Actually, we've been banned for calling the students on campus, because we were thinking about small groups of students. For some of the programs, especially when the students are taking retake, we have students like 30 students, 50 students, not 8,000 students that we assess on a regular basis, that we could call them, and with social distancing and ensuring all the SOPs, we let them come to the campus and they can assess online. And we'd all actually given out our program, our academic calendar in terms of that exams as well. But then we were told by the competent authority vis-a-vis the government that no student should be allowed to come to the campus. So there we are stuck. So at that time, I know we're not talking about the affective and the psychomotor domain today, but so we said, what do we do here? We have to assess some of these things when the students are moving from one year to another year. So, so one-on-one exams we're going to work on. Clinical skills, you know, like, and I'll talk about it just a little bit more, because we said we're trying to, in a very, we're working really hard to see what component of skills can be broken into the cognitive component and an actual hands-on component. So if we would be able to assess the cognitive component, so like management skills. So if we have a scenario, we show a patient, you know, like, will the student be able to develop a management plan? Yes, of course, history taking, counseling can be assessed through a one-on-one examination system. Procedural skills, practical exams, we do have a lot of procedural skills that we assess. How are we going to do that? And then the practical exams. So I don't know about the other place, but these are just the general gist of things that we do. So we have all these computer softwares. We at our university, for the last 2 years, we have been conducting online, kind of an electronic online examination. So we have computer labs, which can cater to about 600 students at any one point in time. So the students would be on campus and they write the exam on the computers. And we have good experience with that for the last 2 years. So previously, students were given multiple choice questions, extended matching questions, for the, particularly for the medical and the dental schools, and short answer and short essay questions as well, which include the fill in the blanks kind of question, one-liner answers. So for the MCQs and EMQs, and we have good experience with that. What we were doing before, we are pretty much using it again. Previously, the students were given, let's say the exam was 1 hour and 30 minutes, let's say 90-minute exam. Then students would have 90 minutes to finish the paper, and they could always go back to their previous multiple choice question or extended matching question. With the online exam that we have designed, we're going to do, every student, just like before, every student will be getting a different question. We will be using 2 to 3 equivalent forms of the same paper. So, and every student will be getting a different question at different time. And 1 minute time will be given to the undergraduate students to complete that one multiple choice question. Once that 1 minute is off, whether the student has attempted it or not attempted it, the question is going to disappear and the answer would have entered. And the same thing is going to happen with short answer question and short essay question. So the student would not, yes, of course, the students would be at a bit of a disadvantage. The students would not be able to go back to the previous question. So this is your time. You can technically, if they're sitting at home and they have another laptop open, if they have a book open, if they have somebody senior sitting with them, telling them about the questions. So whatever they're doing, this is our way of kind of ensuring that, they would not be able to go back to the previous question. Plus, if 4 or 5 students are sitting together, every student would be getting a different question. So they won't be able to share that. In addition, we also reshuffle the options. So if for the same question, the right answer was option A, then when it goes to the other student, the right answer may not be A, it may be B, C, or D. So we are going to be shuffling that, and we have a software. We use Moodle, and we have good experience of 2 years with that. So it shuffles the questions, it shuffles the options as it moves along. So that's kind of, something that can be done before the students come to the exam to ensure there is some level of secrecy, transparency. And of course, these are some of the things like I talked about. I won't go into the details of that. These are, and of course, Socrates is another, Socrative is another one that we are trying to experiment with. But we haven't used it yet. So these are some of the skills like I talked about. In terms of the procedural and the real practical skills, we're going to postpone them. We're not sure. We looked at many options, but seems like it would not be possible to have them online at the time of conduction of exams. Okay, so second portion, login ID to be monitored. So that's one thing we know when the students log in, how to do that. For our attendance also, we are using not only the thumb impression, even in the classrooms, we have a software. So we do face and eye recognition. Some of the students in our university, they use niqab. So they have their face covered. So there we use eye recognition. So right now we are trying to ensure that the same when they are logging in, if somehow through the computer, if they are on their cell phones or through their laptops, we could use that same software and we would recognize if the same student is sitting behind the screen. And for proctoring, we decided we'll use more proctors. We could use more proctors so that less number of students exam would go on a little longer. But so one person may be monitoring 40 to 50 students at the same time. Just a quick reminder that our medical school has 350 students in each batch. So for 350 students, plus we have affiliated colleges. So totally we are actually at any point in time assessing 1,000 students for any one batch. So, so we make sure that there are different proctors that are looking at different groups of students through videos. And of course, we're also going to see if a student suddenly turns off the video, we call them, we ensure that they are there, they are the right students that are sitting there. Okay, so that's kind of, and that was the toughest call. However, after the exams are conducted, I think that's kind of, now that we have most of you are all medical education people, with multiple choice questions and extended matching questions, we can look at the psychometrics, see how different papers were in terms of their feasibility, how they were doing. For the short essay and short answer question, we can check for plagiarism, similarity indices. We have softwares for that. We have Turnitin and all that. For the one-on-one exam that we have decided, even for postgraduates, for online, part of our paper is going to be, or our exam is going to be through a one-on-one exam. So we would ensure that, well, we already have a structured exam when we do one-on-one exam in the university, and also for our OSPE and OSCE, we do have a structured exam. So there, we use the same structured exam. We have 2 examiners for each student, and the questions may be, again, we have different forms, equivalent forms of structured exams that we can use with students. And that way we can probably ensure fairness. And I thought it is important at this time to ensure that we are cognizant of the halo effect. That's something, particularly when we are with the preceptors, particularly also with the students. With some students, and any time in a one-on-one exam and any kind of even Viva, and more so in Viva VOCI, which is obsolete in a lot of places, there's this huge halo effect. So we really need to be cognizant of that. I think with that, what's most important is that, at the end, we review, that's one thing we can look at. This is what we're going to be discussing again in our next meeting. We look at the students' results in their online examination and compare them with their previous performances in the institution for their other midterm exams, for their other previous exams from previous years, previous semesters, because we have different systems running in the university. So those are some of the things that we can always go back and look at. Well, having said all that, I'm not sure how well all these things are going to work out. And with that, it's a tough call. Doing an online exam on campus, which we are very well versed with, we have good experience with that. Doing it while the students are sitting at home is going to be a big, big challenge. One last thing, in our part of the world, I can talk about Pakistan for sure, we have major issues with internet connections. We have electricity breakdowns. Even for now, even at my house, I have 2 electricity forms on right now to ensure that if the electricity, which is the Karachi electric supply, if it breaks down, my generator is running at the same time. So not everybody may be able to do that, and we are we know that, we are cognizant of that. So what we are going to do is we'll help the students, we'll facilitate them. We can't provide them internet, but if they sign, and we created another affidavit for that, if they sign off of an affidavit saying that the university will not be responsible if they attract the virus after the exam, and if they agree to do that, and if they inform us ahead of time that they are not able to, they don't have internet connection, or they don't have a laptop at home, for example. So we're going to facilitate that, but they would have to be done at some place where the university can monitor, where we can provide them computers, be it in a different city, because some of our students are from other cities. So that's kind of still a struggle, and I'm still working with that. So thank you very much. I hope I stayed within the time, Helen.
That's lovely. Thank you very much, Lubna. Again, full of really practical, useful information that we can take away and apply. I would like to take a few minutes now, maybe 10 minutes, to ask some of the questions that have been coming up in the chat. First of all, I'd like to pick up from sorry, I'd like to pick up from Shahid and Hasnain's talk, first of all, to throw out there to everyone who's participating in this webinar, the question about programmatic assessment. That's, I think, what he was describing, using lots of points of assessment, which Shahid said were primarily formative, but then using it in a summative end of year decision-making process. And I'd be interested to know how many of you are using programmatic assessment. And if you are, what do you see as the, any problems you've had with programmatic assessment and how you're tackling that. So that would be really good if that could be going on in the chat. But turning back to Shahid and Hasnain, could they say a bit more about this approach, now using TBL? So to summarize, and so people can understand what we're talking about, Shahid, what you're really saying is before they come to a group working session, the students answer a quiz. And then within the group working session, the group answers a quiz. And that quiz may actually be used to make progress decisions. You can correct me if I've got that wrong, but I think that is what I picked up. So now that you've moved from making those quizzes formative to encourage learning and for learning, you're going to now use them summatively, even in a small way. Do you see that that has changed students' behavior in their TBL and in answering those quizzes? Could you unmute yourself? Could you?
I'm sorry, I didn't realize that. Thank you, Prof. Helen, for your question and about the TBL. TBL have been practiced in my previous institution that I have been working with, not in the current. In current, we are doing a workshop on 22nd for the faculty development. Here in TBL, a lot of work has to be done by the faculty. So there's some extra work, but once you have done that, probably it becomes an easy selling for everyone, for faculty. And the beauty of this instruction model is that the instruction and the assessment goes together. So how it works really, it is done in 3 phases. In phase 1, actually we go for the outside class assignments or reading. We send out the reading material to the student, but those reading material has to be emphasized. If we are using textbook, the number of pages, how many they have to read, how much time do you give them to read, should be the extent of reading, and the articles can also be sent out for them to read. Those would be relevant to something which will be going on the theme. So it works under a theme. For example, I take an example from the ENT. The theme is sore throat. So with sore throat, I will send out the articles on differential diagnosis or diagnostic skills and workup and all. Those reading material from the textbook, prefer undergraduate from the textbook or from the articles that we also send out. So they have to read, this is one. And the second is, and they mandatorily will read because they have to play their role in their group. Group assessment is actually a contribution coming from all. And then they will have to have their individual assessment also. We call it IRAD, the individual reassurance assessment test. So in the same question paper, say if we have designed 5 OBAs or 10 OBAs, depending on the time that the TBL is going to be run. So we will use the same for the IRAD and for the group or the TRAD, where we call team reassurance or the group. So the same number will be used. So IRAD is used in an exclusive session where the students individually will answer. Then in GRAD, we use the scratch card where the group will work together. Though they have done the same question individually, but in team, they usually perform better. And this is a teamwork. What we are missing out in COVID is that social contact is not there. Teamwork is not there. So this all can be brought back online. So this is how we work. So outside class, and then outside class, you can give individual assessment also, assignment also, which can be marked by the facilitator. Then they get in, they undergo IRAD, GRAD, and then they are given in-class application, which is an assignment. Say, I will create a scenario and give to it. So first session is they work together. How big a class is doesn't really matter. You can have 100, 200, but then they will break up into small groups. So online, we can easily create the channels or the breakout rooms. They will go, they will be identified, they will be given their group number. So they will go into their group. Facilitator can visit them in every group. I can move around and we can have more than one facilitator also, but usually TBL works with one facilitator. So you don't need like PBL multiple facilitators actually.
No.
So,
Could I just interrupt at that point, Shahid, because
yeah.
you're really going to explain a lot of that next week. What my focus question...
Okay, the students' feedback.
It was really about, do you think by moving these quizzes to be summative, we actually push the students to cheat and not just recall and apply their learning in the classes? By changing formative to summative, have you noticed any adverse effects like that?
Okay. Currently, actually, we haven't used this formative assessment to be used for decision making in summative. We haven't done that. This needs an institution policy.
Right.
You know, institution has to agree to that, has to take, and senior management has to take a decision on that. Only then. We have no experience of using it. But my recommendation is that these formative, these assessment, which is done as an formative way, but they are exactly done with all the security, all the cheating being observed, cheating and not cheating, proctoring is being observed by the facilitator online there. So when these scores actually, the students achieve these score can be used for summative. And then you see what happens. Multiple facilitator, multiple sessions, multiple scenarios. This adds on to the reliability and validity of the assessment actually. So what's wrong in using that data, multiple point data on a summative way that ultimately we take a major decision which can involve the committee, and this committee will gather all the information on data points over time and make a decision on the student's performance, which is very fair because there's no point of cheating and all. And but of course, for example, a very important point that I want to point out here, the students' individual performance and team performance. Team performance, every team member will get the same score. That may not be fair, right? Some have more active participation. So what we do is the team score is multiplied by their individual score. So it's a multiplier of the individual. So if somebody has scored high individual, then the multiplying it by the team score will give him more, fetch him more score. So that's how we work. So, and then the peer assessment. Peer evaluation is very important here. It is very realistic because we do not just want, you tell the student to give the peer assessment, they will do equal marks to everyone. Here, they have to identify the same marks has to be distributed among the schools. So they have to identify who is number one, who is number two, who is number three. If said out of 50 marks, 60, there are 3 candidates, everybody has 20. So actually what will happen? That one who gets 25, 20 will be deducted to 15. So they have to do a very realistic peer review also, peer assessment also. It's a very effective, I have done it very effective, but so far no experience of using this score as a summative. This needs institution change in mindset.
I think we could have a whole session just on the complexities of programmatic assessment.
I can run that, no problem.
And I think because you said it in your answer there, that you actually end up running the formative assessment as tightly as summative assessment.
That's right.
So basically, you're running loads of summative assessment throughout the year. Can I just now turn back to Lubna to ask 1 or 2 questions that have come up about her talks? I'll give you a couple to go with. First of all, have students complained about the fact that they can no longer go back to questions, because it's a strategy developed by many students that they look at the questions and they're not cheating, they just go off and do other things, and it's lifelike. You think of your problem that you're facing with a patient, you go off and do other things, you're all the time thinking, and you come back to it. So there's that one. And you're saying MCQ 60 seconds per question. Is that less than usual?
I'll answer the first question, the second question first. Yeah, we used to give 1 minute 20 seconds for each MCQ when the students were at campus and they had the option of going back as well. And now we reduced it. Of course, this is after our online academic council, which was the academic committee or the curriculum committee before that. It was decided that no, we are going to restrict the time. I hate to say what I'm going to say right now. Somehow it is a journal acceptable kind of a belief that every student is trying to cheat, that every student is wrong. And it's, I haven't, I mean, I've worked outside Pakistan for almost 15 years. We were not, that was not the prevalent belief there. And I'm talking about, you know, North America, where I worked at the university, that this was not a prevalent belief that the students are going to cheat. So when we are giving take-home examinations, and I've studied and I've taken a take-home examination, I never had time to talk to my friends. So that's a prevalent belief. In Pakistan, we think, and we have experience as well, I have the experience because I was trying those exams, that, you know, when you do the similarity index, the students very smartly cheat, and they can get away with it as well. So I don't know what's the reason. I mean, we have to do some genetic analysis. So we the students complain. The second question. So that's the problem. We reduced the time. We said you would have little time. If you have a book open, like I said in my presentation, if you have a laptop open, you would not have time to look at the book. You would have to attempt the question. The other problem that we have, and I can say that for 99% of the Pakistani universities, well, maybe 98, the faculty does not know how to make questions, the critical thinking questions. Most of the questions and the papers that we have looked at, and I think Dr. Sayyeda is there somewhere, and she can back me up on this as well, that the faculty makes questions that are generally recall questions. Like at the bottom of the pyramid kind of question. So again, if you have recall questions and the student is sitting at home, how long does it take that you go back and you look at the book and write the exam, or somebody sitting and telling you and looking at the book right away, right? Those kinds of things are acceptable, and I'm ashamed to say that, kind of an acceptable norm, okay, pretty much. So we have to take care of that. So they have less time, and that's the main problem. So I've answered the second question.
Thank you. Yes, I think you've answered, particularly it was the question about students complaining not being able to go back to a question. And yeah, you're really saying you've really brought that in because so many of your questions were recall questions, and you might rethink it if you had more application of knowledge questions.
Exactly. So yes, we are building application question, but I have to say this, when we were doing this with the students, now our students are trained on how to attempt the paper on the computer. So they did complain that we want to go back to the first question, we have to go back. So we said, these are unusual circumstances, we're not going to do that. And then to create equivalent 2 to 3 forms of the same paper is not going to be an easy task for the faculty. So, you know, I know, I mean, that's where we are right now, and we're struggling.
It did sound like a huge amount of work to have different forms of the same paper, as well as your randomized delivery of questions
and everything
randomized. But can I ask one more, I think a quick question. How many invigilators did you have for your class of 350?
Previously, we used to use about, when there were 350 students, we would have a maximum of, in one lecture hall that we would have, there would be around 100 students sitting. So for 100 students, we would have 4 to 6 invigilators. And of course, there is support staff as well. But when we say invigilators, I'm talking about the faculty, and then we also have support staff. So now, and so, you know, the faculty would have more time. But now we need the entire faculty to be working as invigilators.
And so for 350 students, how many faculty would be invigilating any one exam?
Okay, so what we are planning to do is, we won't give it to, just honestly, they're not going to be 350 students. There'll be 350 students plus 500 more students. So about 850 to 900 students that will be examined. So we'll be using about, 30 to 40 faculty members at any one point in time to be proctoring. But we have, faculty from affiliated colleges. They would also be working. It's not just our constituent college, but we have these affiliated colleges. So it'll be like 40, for each 40 students, we would have a minimum of one faculty member. That's
Lovely.
kind of what we are thinking about, yeah.
Thank you both very much. I think it's now time to move on to our talk 3, where we're moving more and more to examples of how institutions are using e-assessment and the problems they've faced. So I'd like to invite Dr. Shital Bandari from the Patan Academy of Medical Sciences in Lalitpur in Nepal. So please, again, say a few words about yourself and your interest in this subject, and then take us through your talk, please.
Thank you, Helen. Can you see the slides?
They're, I think, just about to start, Shital. Yes, we can now see. We can now see them. Thank you very much.
Okay. Thank you very much. So this is the third talk about myself. I am Associate Professor of Public Health and Medical Education. I am also the member of the Examination Management Committee. Our university is very new university. It is a health science university, started in 2010 in Nepal. So we started with the MBBS program, which is undergraduate medical education. Then we started the postgraduate medical education, EMD, MS courses, and we added the MPH course. So today what the examples that I will be bringing is mostly from the postgraduate MPS course, but I can talk about many other things, but due to the time limit, I think I'll be only showing the examples from the MPH. So I also, I am the faculty at this FEMR Regional Institute in Coimbatore, because I did my FEMR fellowship from there and I'm faculty over there. So I started the journey of medical education about in 2004 exactly, where I was given chance to work in the examination section in one of the medical college. So I started from there and I'm still working as a in the assessment section. My area of interest is student selection. That is my FEMR fellowship. So how to select students, especially from the rural and remote areas. That is where I worked and I am still working on that one. So on that note, I would like to start my presentation. So I would like to share, describe the e-session that we do and the e-assessment that I have done in a model. This is an example, only one model I have taken in the MPS program in the School of Public Health of my university. And this happened in the COVID era, because this is where I taught. I actually just finished this course yesterday, and I would like to show you what myself and my colleague has done. So I would share the thing that worked and some of the things that did not work and how we got it worked. And then maybe this will be a lesson or lesson learned for the others to carry on. So this is a case presentation, 5-week long model. I finished it yesterday. It's called Research 2 model, where I teach advanced statistics model, because actually I was trained as a statistician first before I came to the public health. And then our MPH is competency driven course. Every semester we have 3 to 4 models. Model, because it is a competency driven course, so model completion certificate is required. So model coordinators, they need to issue the certificate. And in model assessment, we do 2 types of assessment. One is continuous, like the previous speakers were telling. We mark them for their presentation, participation, and assignments, and we have used them a lot. And then there is a small summative assessment part also, because as per the rule of the university and of the council, Public Health Council, we have to have this one. And then we also need to have a final semester exam with the external examiners. So I'm not going to talk about the semester examination. So my talk is more about the model assessment, how we do it, and how we assess the student. So the following slides, I'm going to show many examples from the Google Classroom, Google Meet, and Google Forms. This is just for the example because we use them a lot. This is not to promote Google. And then we also have a Google Classroom for Education, where now Google Meet recording is possible, and it is automatically recorded and comes to my Google Drive, and then I can share to my student for the asynchronous learning. This can be done with Zoom also very easily. So if you do not have a Google Meet, then I highly recommend to use Zoom. I use, or we use at Parton, is the Google Classroom assignment system. It's very easy to give assignment, give feedback, and keep track of the students. And this is what we are loving. So we use a lot. So I use Google Drive plus Google Forms to connect with my students through my Google Classroom. So what happened in my sessions? So first, synchronous sessions were taken in the morning. Usually 8 o'clock we start, 8 to 10. And then usually we deliver a lecture, and then we also have a skill development session where the live session, we using the Google Meet, we do a session. And then after every session, a assignment is created for the student to practice whatever we have done in the morning. So then all the video that was recorded in the morning is given to them, and they actually go back to the lectures and the skill development session, and then they use those videos to do their assignment. So usually there are 2 days given for them to complete the assignment. And student, actually, they didn't complain. They were happy. They said that topics were a little bit difficult, but they were managing very well. Assignment is important because we are using assignment as this continuous assessment. We don't use the term formative assessment because technically you cannot take the marks of the formative assessment. So we use continuous assessment. The second one that we did a little bit different than the TBL is that actually what we did was we assign a topic to a student. He or she presented the topic, and then there was a question answer session by the peers and the faculty, and all the other peers were asked to write the summary of the presentation done by the presenter, and the marking was done by the topic presenter, that is student himself or herself, not by the faculty. So that is something that they really liked. So maybe there are some issues of giving more marks of a bias mark, but I think that is working well. And then currently I am getting feedback from there. So how can we improve that in the next time? Last year it was only summary. Last year it was only a presentation, but this year this summary was added because last batch actually gave me feedback that something has to be added because everybody need to understand the concepts. And we did it twice a week. Then we had a mixed method research project. So project is very important so to teach. So then we use a lot of online surveys and telephonic interviews. And to prepare a report, we had a lot of discussion in the Google Docs, in the Google Meet, using Google Docs, and then using the Google Slide. So this is something I think went very well. So this is something we can think. It's very easy. I am promoting this Google system because it is free for everybody who has a Gmail with them. So what was the problem is like in the session, in the face, we know that we miss the face-to-face interaction, and that is quite natural because that is something that we miss. But given the scenario that we have in our hand, I think we cannot do anything about it now. So, and then in-person review of the thing that they would ask me in the classes, that is also not there. But what we have done is that we have had a live, this synchronous, this screen sharing sessions where everybody could ask me, sharing their screen, okay, this is where I'm stuck, how to do, what to do, how to interpret. So this sort of thing really helped. And second thing that we really discuss is like how to avoid the plagiarism in the assignment. So we have a offline plagiarism checker with us, and then also online. So we use a lot, and then I usually give them the output of the software, and then actually ask their feedback, okay, how to resolve that. So rather than blaming them, so getting the input from the students very important, I think. So that is something that we have to change. And students were complaining there was uniform marking by the topic presenter. So that is something that we have to work out how to do that. So what I did was actually I asked student to read some of the materials, how to assess critically, how to discriminate the summary presented by the peers. And then I also taught them how to use the online plagiarism software, the easy one, the free one. So that is something that they really liked. So this is how the problems 1 and 2 was solved. The third problem was because of the COVID era, so our student could not go to the community and do the surveys, and then also they could not go to the community face-to-face interviews, they could not do. So what we decided is that we will use the online service. One of the disadvantage was that most of the people who have the internet facility, they will be surveyed, but that is what we could do. And then we do the telephonic interviews. But my student, they told me that Skype actually is a very good, because of the quality of a sound it has, the recording capacity, they really like that, and many of them use the Skype one. So maybe if you have similar problem, maybe you can try with that one. Then for the data compilation, analysis, and everything, like I said earlier, we use the screen sharing option, and then everybody was there, and so everybody was chipping in. All the students, all the faculty were there. So this is how we actually manage this problem. So in the final one, if you remember that this is the continuous one for the in module examination, then there was three part in the theory. One is multiple choice question. In past, we always use the understanding and application level questions. And then actually in the Google Forms, what I found is that there are sections that where we can actually, I can put 3 or 4 or 5 questions in a chunk, and that could be randomized by the question and also by the options. That was very easy. So I did that. So a student can see 3 to 5 questions in a chunk, and then they could decide which one to do first and which one to. So once they complete one section, they could go to the next section, and that it worked very well, because and then I created it as a quiz, and then the mark came out very easily, and then it was in my Google Drive immediately. So that was something that our student also liked it, so they were happy with it, that one. And then second one was PBQ, that is problem based question. That is the analysis level of question, where we give the public health research scenario, and then we ask them to do a simple calculation and then interpretation actually of the solution that way. And this has time, that once you know how much time is required to solve the question, I think we don't need to worry much about the copying and the plagiarism. But still, we took it to that one, and then we time it very well. So we knew that how much time it will require. So copying and plagiarism was very less, I would say, not nil. So, and then reporting was done using Google Docs, because and then I could see there, no, in the live how what they are typing, I could see in the Google Docs, Google Sheet. So this is something that we can do very easily with the Gmail. We can do that, no. And then the score, I actually did the scoring, and yesterday I sent it to them. So we have to give the immediate feedback, no, otherwise the student will not accept it. So that is something. And third theory paper that we did is a critical appraisal. We have this since the beginning, is that evaluation and synthesis level question with it. There were students were asked to compare and contrast the public health condition or scenario, and then it is also timed. So it is also done in Google Docs. I could manage to see everybody typing there in multiple screens. So I was very happy how they did it within the time limited. And like Professor Beg was saying, like when the electricity was not there, when internet was not there, so I immediately called them, and then took care of the problem, and then they could join. So actually we knew that the problem will come. So apart from the regular internet, we also asked them to get the pack. There was an educational pack from our government telecom this industry, so they could buy that one in a very low price. So they did that, and we didn't have a problem. So this is something that we did with the cognitive part. Then second one, we also did the skill part. It was a computer-based simulation modeling, and then they have to report it to the in the assignment system with the Google Docs. So this is something done. And yesterday, actually Friday, from 8 o'clock to 11 o'clock, we did a Viva boss. So we were thinking whether to do a structured Viva or unstructured Viva. Actually, we ended up doing the unstructured one. So we used Viber. Actually, in Nepal, Viber is more popular than WhatsApp. So I actually called the student using Viber, and they came to Google Meet one by one. And then we had two faculty over there. We both scored and then averaged our mark. So that was an issue. And in the first semester, I know that our faculty has used the Zoom, the breakout rooms of the Zoom, and they did the structural oral examination, both working very well. We are happy with the both the system. So maybe we have to use so many, like in the assessment we say, no. So if we use so many different tools, then we have a good validity, reliability. Here also we have to work with tools and many tools. So at last, what I would like to say is that module evaluation is very important. Once you complete your course or module, then I have already sent feedback questionnaire to my students, and I will actually ask only two questions: what was best in every session, and what do you like me to improve it further, so that your junior school could not face the same problem that you have faced. So this is what we have done. This is one of the examples from our MPH course. There are so many examples from our MBBS course. There are examples from our EMD and EMS course. So many things I can share, but due to the time limit, I would like to finish my presentation here. So if you have any questions and queries, I will be more than happy to do that. So thank you and namaste.
Sheetal, thank you very much. That again was full of really practical suggestions, and I love the way you flagged up your issues and how you're attempting to overcome them. I'll just make one comment at the moment because time is rushing on. There's other contributions to be made, but we'll hopefully come back to more Q&A later. It was very interesting how you said you'd put some MCQs into sections in your Google Forms. And again, you were using random question order and random option order as others had described, but you had put some into small sections, and maybe that's a nice halfway house. You limit the amount of time that any student has to find out the answers from external sources, but you don't totally remove the opportunity to go back and update thinking. So that struck me as really a very nice adaptation from what Lubna had said earlier. But we may have some other contributions from the floor. I was told that maybe Professor Rita from Iran would want to say a few words about how they're using e-assessment. Is that right? Is Professor Rita with us at the moment?
Hello, everybody. Thank you. Actually, I didn't raise hand or ask for talking, but I think maybe Dr. Ali Mehdi or Professor Shahid had suggested such a thing. In Iran, actually, in universities of medical sciences for, cognitive aspects of assessment, we have less problem. And in my own opinion, I consider cheating as a part of teaching learning process, and so I try for my own courses to define and design ways of assessment that if the students cheat, they learn from their cheating. So I think that professors should be more innovative than students. We have ways, for example, you can divide your students, you can put a head for each group and ask him to be responsible for the safety of the exam. This is, for example, one way. But actually, I do not agree with restricting the time of responses or not going back to the previous questions, because when we are doing online assessment, we should not forget the rules and rationales of a real assessment, what the science of assessment says. And we should not hurt all the students, even the smart ones, the hardworking ones, because they become stressful. I cannot imagine myself in a place of, participating in an exam that I don't have enough time for thinking and reflecting, especially if the students are reflective. types, they have reflective types of learning, and answering questions, they it hurts them, and they cannot show their competencies and their knowledge in such exams. So in my opinion, even in face-to-face exams, you encounter a lot of cheating, but maybe we don't understand them as much as we understand online assessment cheating. So we should accept a part of it, and we should be innovative to find ways to minimize it and put some part of the responsibility of the safety of the exam to the students themselves. Maybe it works better. Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Professor Rita, for your reflections. It is good to be reminded that most students are honest and are doing their best, and interesting that you don't think we should limit time and the ability to go back. The trouble is that the cheating by, maybe it is a few, but the cheating actually disadvantages the people who are doing their best honestly, and therefore we as institutions have a responsibility to do all we can to prevent and detect such cheating, and I think it's an active ethical debate that, again, it's never completely answered. We have to keep going back and asking ourselves, is what we are doing as ethical as possible? There was also perhaps a contribution from Professor Daniel Porter, who is in Beijing. I don't know if he is actually in the audience and did want to offer a reflection.
I've not seen Daniel in the audience, so
No.
perhaps he's not made it to the meeting. So
No.
we have Dr. Ali Abu Tahin from Karbala in Iraq who would like to ask a question, Helen.
Yep, that would be great. Please go ahead.
We need an Iraqi perspective as well, an Iraqi voice to this series. Dr. Ali Abu Tahin.
Assalamu alaikum. Thank you, Brother Ali. Thank you for all. Salam from our side, and hello for all for a wonderful webinar and all discussions and presentation presented. We have a problem in many, same as colleague said, we have similar problems, similar with the application of online assessment nowadays. We use the cameras, but not all universities. It have some benefits, but it's also caused some problems with the weak internet coverage in Iraq. We have problem with the timing of the time allocated for the exam. I don't know what your advice, because we have as we have problems with the electricity and maybe the shutdown of the net for sometimes. So we try to give more time for students, time allowed to answer questions. This it now became like an open book. Actually, this is what done in Iraq, what considered in all in Iraq. We consider it as an open book. But cameras will support that no other people can help him, or he can somebody else do the exam. But how can we manage with the internet problems and these issues? What's your advice? We have when we open the camera to students, the nets will be more difficult. So maybe the shutdown and return back and the problems that with the forms to fill. And thank you for all and for allowing me to speak. Thanks a lot.
Thank you very much. It is really useful to hear perspectives from around the world. I think at this point, I'm going to hand over to Professor Liz, who's going to speak about the University of Edinburgh Global Health Academy. We usually offer an opportunity because some of you will be coming to the Global Health Academy for the very first time. So Professor Liz, are you around? There we are. Liz
Yes,
Grant,
lovely.
who's in sunny Edinburgh by the looks of it.
Yes, it's
Thank
lovely.
you, Liz.
Thank you. And it's wonderful to be with you all today and to, I think, be absolutely inspired and also recognize the value of sharing globally. I learned so much today just listening to the various experiences and the ideas and innovations. So I think this really says to us we need to work together beyond these seminars, these webinars, to think about shared learning. As Professor Helen Cameron said, I run our Global Health Academy, which is hosting these webinars. And the Global Health Academy has a purpose to support shared learning, support shared research, and to build communities of practice. So in the university, we recognise the value of engagement, the value of listening to what others are saying, but also the opportunity together as Edinburgh University, and ideally with all the universities that are represented here, to think about research ideas, to think particularly about education, and to think about the ways of intersecting research and education as well, so that all our students are sure of the evidence of which they practice, but also that they realise that by practicing and working together as a collective community of students across the globe, they can change global health and they can change local health, and that matters. For those who were with me the other day when we were talking, I was saying the Global Health Academy is based on 3 principles, and the fundamental one is about the equality of humanity, that we are all equal. And you say that and people say, of course, but actually I think we have, as trainers, as teachers, as support workers, to keep emphasising the importance of equality, that together we are equal across the world, but we live in very unequal circumstances. And our role, our duty, our work in health is to try and tackle those unequal circumstances and to change the way that people experience health, that people access health, to improve the quality of healthcare. And I know that's for all of us our ambition. Our academy also has a number of online masters programs that we've supported through the schools and the university. We've been supporting online since for the last probably 10, 12 years. So it's not a COVID initiated thing. This is something about supporting online learning so that those who are in work carrying out responsible jobs can have an opportunity to learn and to do certificates, diplomas, masters while working. So they're doing these part-time, and much of the work of the masters is very much thinking, what's the learning? What's the context in which people are working? How do we bring learning assessments to really relate to context so that there's value in what we do? So we're not just learning something to put it away, so that it becomes valuable. And our academy works with a number of partners. We've got many partners in a number of African countries, but many partners also in India, Pakistan, Bangladesh, Iraq, Iran. We'd love to have more partners as well. So I invite all of you that would like to become a member, if you wish. It's not about becoming a faculty member, it's just becoming a member of this global community. On the website, there's an opportunity to download a form, just to electronically fill it in and get send it back in, and then we can become, we'll share newsletters and support opportunities, research, education opportunities. So thank you very much for that opportunity to share about the Global Health Academy, and to, again, as director, welcome each of you and to thank the leadership here. We really appreciate it.
Thank you very much, Liz. It's really good to understand the Global Health Academy being the host, and we are very grateful for this opportunity. You know, hearing what's happening across the world is a very rare opportunity. So thank you very much for hosting it. And I think at this point it would be useful to hear from Ali again about the survey that you were all completing near the beginning of the webinar on your own experiences. Ali?
Yep, thank you, Helen. we've had 100% survey of, so the maximum our survey allows is for 100 people. And I'm happy to say that we had 100 responses, and the responses actually were of great interest. So could you just confirm that you can see the screen here? Can you see the screen, Helen?
Yes, yes, we can. Thank
Yes,
you.
we can see.
Perfect. So our first question was, what types of assessments have our participants delivered remotely? So the majority of you have done formative assessments. A very small number have done summative assessments. Now that would be very interesting to hear how that was done. And a relatively small proportion did during lecture assessments. But it's fascinating to see that 22 people in the survey were involved in summative assessments. So there's a variety of platforms that people have said they have used. So Moodle, Socrates, I think Poly everywhere, Google, then we've had Microsoft Forms, Blackboard, so a wide range of platforms. The type of tools used for remote online assessment, the majority of you who filled this survey used the tools for MCQs, assignments and short answers. A very small proportion of you used these for essays and open book questions. Now, how was the experience? I was actually surprised that most of you who filled the survey found the experience quite easy. And a relatively small proportion, I suppose, would fit into the category that I would say I would be in, of neither easy nor difficult. And what about the challenges of delivering remote online education? So technological was the biggest challenge thought to be the case, whereas plagiarism. So it looks like, you know, the themes that were discussed today were of uppermost concerns: plagiarism and technological challenges. I suppose technological attitude, things such as the digital divide, training, the expense, figure less, but plagiarism and technological challenges were uppermost. How established were remote online assessment? How established is remote online assessment likely to be in the future? A lot of you think that it's going to be quite a lot of it, at least moderate going upwards to lot and a great deal. So it appears that at least there's a consensus that this thing is here to stay. Should online assessment of cognitive skills become an integral aspect of medical education? Looks like most of you like the idea. As you can see, you either strongly agree or agree. So thank you very much. That was that. And the survey appeared to have captured your opinion based on the themes that were discussed today.
I think I'd let her. Thank you very much, Ali. I was going to return to some of our participants' comments and questions from the chat, because there's a lot of things still coming up, if Ali feels that it's all right.
Please. Yes, it looks like we still have our audience with us, so I think it'd be really fair.
And it would be really nice to pick up on some of the things that have been said. Dr. Dutta made the comment, the reflection, does programmatic assessment run the risk of burying, slighting or reducing assessment of learning outcomes of an essential subject to accommodate learning outcomes of the many subjects that are combined in system-based modules? I think the point there is that when we're doing a lot of small assessments, we may not adequately blueprint and cover all the topics necessary. And those of us that are used to blueprinting will have to rethink how we're doing that if we're going to use a programmatic assessment. And then another comment was on proctoring ratios. There's quite a lot on proctoring. So we might come back to Lubna about that. It was said that 1 to 30, I think, from the numbers Lubna gave, but this commentator, I don't have the name, said that's not enough. We may need to be 1 to 10. So can technology help? And talking about face recognition and eye movement recognition. And we in the UK are sitting here thinking it's quite contentious. It's been prohibited in Germany to have face recognition. It cuts across data protection law, and so it's not straightforward. I think it was in Australia, there was a student outcry about face and eye recognition, again about data protection and privacy law. So not at all straightforward. And I think from some of the questions coming across from participants who would like to go and explore proctoring more, if Lubna or others would like to contribute some names of systems that they're using, it would be really good to capture that now. And in the same way that Sheetal said, it's not that you're recommending these products, but it's just about gathering intelligence. So Lubna, would you like to suggest some names, and we'll go to the rest of the participants if possible?
Well, thank you very much. I know I've been trying to answer those questions on chat as they were coming up, and I was answering privately to people when they were asking that question, whether 25 is all you could see on Zoom or Moodle or Google Meet. The software that we use through which we are delivering our exam, it's an examination software. It's kind of Moodle based. We still call it Moodle. That's what we are using. And when we were trying the videos on it, and of course, I'm not an IT expert, but when our IT was doing it, you could actually see between 30 to 40 students right there on one screen. Of course, if you have a small screen, everybody would be small or large or whatever. So you could see between 30 to 40 students at any one point in time. And now to answer your more hypothetical question about the ethics of it. Right now, we don't have that law. And then in the initial part, like we said in our part of the world, for various reasons, when we were doing thumb impressions for attendance for the students, some of the students were saying our thumbs were not coming in. And I'll tell you about the cheating strategy. What the students did were that each student had done 10, so one student can actually sign in for 9 others. So they used all their fingers, and it took us a little while to find out how come I'm delivering a lecture, and I'm looking at like 100 to 150 students, and the attendance is for all 300 some students. How is that possible? Did they come in and leave? And so finally we figured out that this is what's happening. So that's when we introduced face recognition. We don't have at this point in time in Pakistan a law that you're not allowed to use that and you can capture the data. And we have this little device which goes around in the lecture halls that every student kind of uses it, and they can use it. And then with face recognition, we have a large number of our female students. And of course, 70 to 80% of our students are female, right? And out of them, at least 50% of them use, the face cover, the niqab. So what do we do there? So that's eye recognition and face recognition was done. So even for me, when I go into the Q bank, sometimes with aging, my thumb doesn't work. So I would have to, so if the thing outside the Q bank recognizes my face. So I'll be using that for faculty, especially in these places like the Q bank and examinations and assessment. So we do that. And we don't have the law, so we're using it. So we are now trying to see, and I think we have tested it, our IT is working at it, that the same kind of a system can be built in through the computer. Yes, there's going to be violation of privacy. Yes, there may be people that may say that while this recognition, their entire personal data was stolen and what have you, but it's not like, and through the phone as well, things like that may be happening. But that's right now using it, so we'll be using it.
Lubna, could you share some names of commercial companies that are providing that for you, for people that might want to look it up?
I really, no, I really can't. Maybe what I could do is I'll have to go back and check with IT, because our IT does that through those commercial projects. And I know I've been sitting in a couple of them, and the vendors come in and they show us how this is going to work. But I don't remember the names. I'm sorry.
No, of course. Thank you very much. And others are making comments that online proctoring, it really seems to be the really tricky area. That online proctoring, it seemed very limited, working in a low cost area with low bandwidth and low technology. It really is, I think we all want to get away from large classrooms with lots of students sitting in rows, but the technological solutions aren't always open to us. And those clever approaches that Lubna and Shital were explaining about randomization of the order of questions and of options, again requires technological support, as does creating the daughters and the sons of your first questions, so that you get multiple papers. And so we need to recognize that and find ways of coping.
Helen, can I just add on? I'm Hasnan.
Yes, please do.
Yeah, to just answer all these questions, first of all, I would suggest let's blame ourselves first. I think I was attending one of the workshops, the facilitator were asking if we could design creatively the questions, and students should not Google. I mean, the answer should not be available on the internet, so that we could avoid cheating. Most of our learning management systems, the latest version, I am very familiar with Moodle. They have already built-in feature of this online proctoring, and there are many ways, but I totally agree with you, and a lot of actually comments were there. It need stable internet connection. So a simple solution would be you can come up with a personal question, set of personal questions, and embed in between them. Like, for example, what is your mother name? Where your father works? And then you match with it with, I mean, those personal questions which only student knows, and then you could check whether it's the same person or somebody else. Regarding your question, which you asked to Dr. Lubna, yeah, there are a lot of softwares, but I would not recommend that, because you are adding on cost, and the students already demanding to reduce fees. So Respondus is one of them, and there are a few more in the chat. Colleagues here actually responded. All these, like Cisco or their USMLE kind of online exams, so they will charge per student, like maybe $6 per student. And then you have to embed, you need to install on a server side on your LMS, and on the student side also, you might need to install some softwares. So data protection and privacy is other issues. So I would suggest actually we could use technology where technology can solve our problems. Don't use just for sake of using it. It will create more problems.
Thank
you. Can I answer another question? It is not related, but somebody asked about screen time and how long it should be, the online teaching and assessment. I think we should learn from showbiz. If a very nicely designed movie or nice, actors there, we could watch movie for 3 hours, But sorry to say, with all due respect of all my colleagues here, lecture slides, the third slide, students will close it, So we have to actually come up with that design more nicely interactive and try to find appropriate blend. So if we could blend it in a nice way, I think students will spend hours teaching and engaging with the learning materials. That's all from my side.
Thank you very much, Hasnain.
Ellen, can I add one statement here?
Yeah, please go ahead.
Yeah,
yes,
okay. Yeah, it's an interesting debate. We are taking how the proctoring should be done. Cheating, number one, when you go online, open book assessment, first thing is very clear that cheating element cannot be done away with. That will be there. Whatever software you use, there will be some of the restrictions of the software and all adding on to the course and all. But there are two messages for open book, one for the student and one for the faculty. For the student, that they should prepare for the open book in the similar way as they prepare for the face-to-face or the on-campus. This is for the students, because generally students consider that it's going to be very easy for them, open book exam, and they will have all the kind of notes and books available to them to answer. So that can be done away with restricting them in time, and as Lubna said, some of the questions can be different for different students. This is one. But for faculty, as Hasnan was saying, and I'm amazed since he's the manager in e-learning, but a lot experience that he has. On that note, I agree with him that the faculty has to work harder to develop questions which are problem solving. We have to take it, say, for example, in a face-to-face situation, we are doing to see one.
Attendance ito linggo-linggo, hindi ako nakapag-ano ngayon lang.
Okay.
Edinburgh.
So the okay. So in face-to-face, say for example, Malaysian quality framework, undergraduate, we have to take.
What's the cheese?
Sorry.
Yeah, Professor Shahid, please continue.
Sorry, Shahid. You've been.
Oh, am I not heard?
Yes, you are. We had some interruption. Sorry about that, Shahid.
Okay, I was muted, I think. Now, okay. So where I do not know which point I didn't, I wasn't heard. But anyway, there's the two clear message for the student that they have to prepare the same way as face-to-face, and faculty has to take the question level to test of high order thinking. You cannot design your question to cognitive level 1 and 2 for open book. Has to be level 5, 6, or minimum level 4, like C3, which is analysis, or application C3, C4, and C5. So take your cognitive domain should be tested at a very, very high level for open book, so that students understand. But faculty have to really work hard to create those questions. Often the claim is that C4, 5, but often I have seen in my experience when we assess, those questions are a C2 and C3, but claim to be C4, C5. So waiting session must be very vigilant on vetting the question, that they really address the high order thinking of the students.
Thank you very much, Shahid. And you started us along those lines. Yes.
Yeah, I won't take too long. I saw a question coming up about the typing speed of the students, that they're going to say that our typing is slow, so we won't be able to attempt the question. So that was another feedback when they were saying that why have you decreased the time, and they were complaining. They also complained, in addition to internet and other things, they said our typing is slow. So we discussed offering a typist, but then we were not sure if the typist is of a senior, is another person who knows the responses to the question. So there that's when we designed this affidavit, that we are going to facilitate it. We'll proctor you in another place, which means they'll be present at campus in their own city. We'll manage that. That's going to be tough, but the university is going to take that challenge, that they're going to sign an affidavit that we won't be responsible if they catch the virus, or they have an accident on way to the campus, whichever campus that is. And then there they can answer online, and not answer online or typing, but they can actually write it by hand. So that's how we are facilitating our students at this time, because it did come up. They said that I think it's slow, so we won't be able to answer in the given 3 minute or 2 minute. Thank you.
That's a really interesting point, Lubna. Edinburgh moved to computer-based assessment many years ago, and we faced it then, and so we actually began to put in our outreach material and our admissions material that we would expect students to come with a reasonable typing speed, because the exams were computer-based. So you're right, you've got to think about all those components. I'd like to draw things to a close, although there's clearly lots of interest, but it's been really nice the way Shahid set out, what it is we're trying to assess, and different ways of assessing those competencies. And in medicine in particular, thinking about testing the higher order thinking, not just simple recall. And Lubna and Hasnain and Shital have come back and revisited that again and again. We must think about assessing higher order thinking skills and retrieval of knowledge, yes, but then application, and application in unseen circumstances, new circumstances. And so these are ways of overcoming the cheating as well. And then Lubna gave us a really nice overview of how to make high stakes exams as secure as possible. But remembering that starts well before the exam in teaching students about academic integrity, as well as all the technology that might assist us, and our well-described designed assessment, and then our analysis after it. And Shital gave us some very good examples of using continuous assessment, frequent assessments. It was quite a load. And if I'd had more time, I would have liked to ask him more about that, the work that was for faculty. And he brought in the idea of vivas. And it's again, viva was a word that lost popularity, certainly in the UK, about 10 years ago, because of their the halo effect, the unreliability, but they're being revisited now in a new format, thinking that they could be used to at least confirm results that are coming from other methods, particularly if you get an online assessment and you think that's not triangulating with other evidence about that student's performance. Maybe we need to do some random vivas across the piece, and also some vivas with the people that you are not confident about the validity of their results. So that's an idea that was worth more discussion, and I would suggest that we pick it up next week when we're thinking about clinical assessment. It fits in there very well. So revisiting an old tool in a new circumstance is something we've got to keep thinking about. So thank you very much, all the speakers and the participants who got us to think round the subject better and better as the time went on. And I'm now going to hand over to Dr. Ali Mehdi again, who has really pulled this whole thing together to summarize, to look forward, and to close the session. Thank you, Ali.
I'd really want to thank everybody who's attended, and thank you so much, Helen, for chairing this excellent session. Lots of rich chat coming through, great discussions. I want to give a special thanks to Shahid Hassan, Hasnain Baloch, Lubna Beg, and Sheetal Bhandari and other contributors today. So there's been ongoing support from the likes of Professor Shabi Zaidi from Sadiq International University, Professor Big Daly from Iran, Professor Rita from Iran, and Professor P.V. Chalam. Your support has been constant. Thank you. So a lot of people have actually made this program possible. So next week, we've got a fairly extended program talking about teaching of clinical skills and the assessment of these. So we will start off again with Professor Shahid Hassan and Hasnain Baloch, who will lay down a framework of teaching clinical skills and assessment. I mean, they're clinicians. Professor Shahid Hassan is a clinician himself. We have an African perspective, a mixed African and Indian perspective from Dr. Moira Leng and Dr. Chitra Venkateswaran, who will be talking about teaching ethics and attitude and communication in the context of clinical skills. Professor Neil Turner, who is a nephrologist, but also represents the Royal College of Physicians of Edinburgh and the University of Edinburgh, of course, will be there. We'll have from the Aga Khan University in Nairobi, Dr. Ronald Wasike, who will be telling us about how they have continued with their clinical skills teaching during the COVID epidemic. We have Professor Rex Madrigal and Professor Ike Mendoza talking about a hybrid blended system of clinical skills teaching that they had been running before the COVID pandemic. Now, we will also be moving to other parts of the world. So from Canada at 2 a.m. in the morning in Vancouver, we'll have Professor Karim Khayoumi, who's the professor of surgery at the University of British Columbia, talking about cyber patient, a creation of that university that would be very appealing to a lot of you, because as part of a corporate social responsibility, this program is being made available free to institutions in countries that have low to medium per capita income, a Gini of $4,000, he said to me. And from Edinburgh again, we'll be having Dr. Rajesh, who is the Vice President of the Royal College of Surgeons of Edinburgh. So we have a fairly big and an extensive program next week. So thank you very much for your patience today, and really appreciate you coming on, sparing your time for a common cause. And I wish you the very best until next Saturday, the 27th of July at 11 o'clock UK time, or 10 o'clock, sorry, June, 27th of June, I apologize, UK time, and 10 o'clock GMT on the 27th of June next week for the last in the series of this programs. So I wish you the very best. Take care. Bye-bye. Thank you, everyone.
Bye-bye, everyone. Bye-bye.
Thank you, Helen. Thank you, Ali, and goodbye, everyone.
Thank you. Thank you.
Bye.
Thank you, Shahid.
Hi, everybody.
Thank you,
Thank
Lubna.
you very much, Professor Bhandari.
And my co-speaker.
Thank you very much.
Thank you, my co-speaker.
Thank you. Goodbye.
Thank you, Liz.
Bye.
Thank you, everyone.
Goodbye.
Thank you, Helen.
See you again next week.
Thank you. Thank you, Dr. Shereen.